Это пизда, нахуй, пацаны. Это доброго утречка, нахуй.
Ukraine isn't playing anymore. Every option is on the table and no target is off limits. Moscow has accused Kyiv of launching dozens of drone attacks, including one that sparked a fire at a nuclear power plant, as Ukrainians marked 34 years since the country gained independence from the Soviet Union. The drone attack on the Kursk nuclear power plant in western Russia, 37 miles from the border with Ukraine, caused damage to an auxiliary transformer and forced a 50% reduction in the operating capacity of a reactor, Russian authorities said. Ukraine did not immediately comment on the alleged attack. The fire sparked by the drone, which was shot down, had been extinguished, and there were no casualties or increased radiation levels, the plant said on Sunday. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear watchdog, reported that radiation levels were normal near the Kursk plant. The IAEA has repeatedly warned of the risks of fighting near nuclear plants after Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022. The fire at the nuclear facility was quickly extinguished with no injuries reported, the plant's news service said on Telegram. 2 other reactors are operating without power generation, and one is undergoing scheduled repairs, it said, adding that radiation levels were normal. Alexander Kinstein, the Kursk region's acting governor, said Ukrainian attacks on the plant are a threat to nuclear safety and a violation of all international conventions. Ukraine didn't respond to Russian allegations. An explosion in occupied Kalinove, Luhansk region, destroyed a Russian air defense group on August 22nd. 3 Russians were killed, 2 severely wounded, and their vehicles, including 2 pickups with machine guns and a UAZ loaded with ammunition, were destroyed. Ukrainian intelligence says the unit had taken part in war crimes in Bucha in 2022. A Russian MiG-29 fighter aircraft collided with a Pole while being transported through the streets of Armenia's capital, Yerevan. The video of the jet was published by the YouTube channel Armenian World. The incident occurred at 2:15 a.m. local time. During transportation, the aircraft struck a pole and then crashed into a roadside barrier. The aircraft involved in the accident is a MiG-29A fighter jet, manufactured in 1989. It is stationed at the 3624th Erebuni Air Base as part of the CSTO, which is a Russian-led defense organization equivalent to NATO, of which Armenia is a member. This airbase has become the final station for the classic MiG-29A fighter jets, which are being actively retired by the Russian aerospace forces. It is possible that at the time of the accident, the aircraft was being transported after decommissioning, as it was last seen in the air back in 2022. Militarny previously reported that on August 21, 2025, the Russian aerospace forces had received a batch of new multi-role Su-35S fighters. More bad news for Russia. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration this week approved the sale of 3,350 extended-range attack munition, ERAM, air-launched missiles to Ukraine, with delivery expected in about 6 weeks, the Wall Street Journal has reported. WSJ noted that the $850 million arms package, mostly funded by European countries and including other items, had been delayed until Trump completed talks with Russian ruler Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The WSJ sources said that the use of ERAMs, which have a range of 240 to 450 kilometers, will also require approval from the Pentagon. The U.S. has not officially announced plans for new deliveries of these missiles, but other types of weapons purchased from the U.S. by European governments may assist Ukraine within its borders. In particular, these include air defense systems and GMLRS multiple launch rocket systems with a range of 145 kilometers. ERAM is a long-range air-launched cruise missile used as an air-to-surface standoff weapon. It is designed to strike land and sea targets. Its modular construction allows it to be adapted for different missions. The Pentagon has been blocking Ukraine's use of long-range missiles to strike Russian territory for several months. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is again acting like a spokesperson for Kremlin.
If you look at the way the Russians have conducted themselves, they don't want a ceasefire. They don't want a ceasefire for complicated reasons. We, of course, have pushed for a ceasefire, but again, we don't control what Russia does. If we did, the war would have been over 7 months.
Volodymyr Mykolaienko, Kherson mayor, returns from Russian captivity. He was captured by Russia in April 2022, as Kherson was in Russian occupation for refusing to collaborate with Russia. Ukrainian defenders return from Russian captivity.
Слава Україні! Я знав, що ви за мене дбаєте і турбуєтесь. Мам, не плач.
Дякую всім, хто допоміг нам повернутися додому. Всім дякую. Нашій країні, нашим волонтерам, президенту.
Та все добре, живий, здоровий, скоро буду вдома.
Все, позвонить.
Знаєте, хочу подякувати сьогодні просто всіх тих, хто приймався звільненням цих хлопців, які сьогодні вперше за останні 3,5 майже роки вперше побачили оцю зелень, оці цвітучі наші дерева. Тому я дякую за цей подарунок. Я завжди думав, який у мене буде яка дата буде мого другого дня народження. От. Ну, так дуже гарно співпало, що другий день народження у мене саме 24 серпня.
What's happening with the Russian economy? Automotive industry sales of passenger cars and trucks have dropped due to high loan interest rates. Tens of thousands of vehicles are stuck at the car factory's warehouses with no buyers in sight. In 2024, KAMAZ sold almost one-third fewer trucks than in 2021. The plant incurred a net loss of 3.4 billion rubles, $42.2 million. Revenue fell by 8.8%, and profit from sales decreased 15-fold. KAMAZ workers even had to be moved to a 4-day work week. But while in Europe this is done to boost productivity and take care of employees, in Russia it's aimed at cutting production and optimizing costs. Other machine-building factories that produce civilian equipment and can't find buyers are also reducing the work week. Agricultural machinery industry. Production of farm machinery has collapsed by 27%. Farmers don't have the money for new combines, loans are unaffordable, and old machines are reaching the end of their service life. Rostselmash and other manufacturers are also switching to shortened work weeks. Meanwhile, the fields are seeing the harvest of a compact, poor crop. Agriculture. For the second year in a row, southern regions are experiencing a record-low harvest. Russia may lose up to 25% of its grain crop. May frosts and drought devastated the crops, while the high central bank rate and rising fuel prices have made farming unprofitable. Russia is now importing butter from the UAE and potatoes from Mongolia. Construction. After a brief surge in late 2024, early 2025, growth rates fell to 2.6% in March 2025. Almost no new projects are being launched, and the production of building materials and metals is stagnating. Why? Because there's no demand, while wage arrears at construction companies are increasing. Gas by coupons. A 4.3% drop in oil output and declining gas output is already a wake-up call for the budget, as these resources have been the main source of money for decades. But drone strikes on oil depots and OPEC Plus commitments have taken their toll. And to keep citizens entertained, a certain Soviet-era practice has returned in some regions. In Primorye, annexed Crimea, and Zabaykalsky Krai, gas can only be bought using coupons, while in Chita, no more than 10 liters per car are allowed. Kilometer-long lines form at gas stations. Gas prices have risen by 50% since the start of the year. The authorities blame seasonal demand, but everyone knows it's a result of drone strikes and sanctions. Aviation. Out of 15 commercial jets planned for production in 2025, only one has actually been delivered. The production of the rest is stalled due to sanctions and a lack of components. With a fleet of more than 700 foreign-made planes, Russia is effectively hostage to imports of spare parts through third countries. The number of engineers isn't growing either. And so far, it's difficult to replace them with migrant workers. Shipbuilding Rosmorport terminated its contract with the Onega shipbuilding plant to build 2 icebreakers worth 18.5 billion rubles, $230 million. The reason is sanctions, which prevented the project from even starting. Cooperation with Turkey's Kuzi Star shipyard was planned, but the war cut everything off. TV's Voronezh-based manufacturer Kvant discontinued the production of Irbis TVs due to insufficient consumer interest, and employees haven't received their salaries since the end of 2024. The wage arrears have already exceeded 60 million rubles, 745,000. In the first 7 months of 2025, Russia's budget deficit reached 4.88 trillion rubles, $60.5 billion. Regional budgets accumulated a shortfall of 400 billion rubles, $5 billion over 6 months. The high central bank rate is suffocating businesses. Sanctions are blocking technologies, and drones are adding to this chaos. The Kremlin spends 40% of the budget on war, while the civilian economy dreams of a bright future.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comments section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.